Hi everyone, welcome back to this series where we're going through tools and techniques for your project. This one is 6 techniques and tools that we're going to use in risk. Risk can be a whole department by itself, so this is going to be really great. And of course, if you've been following along so far, we've been using the Pet Buddy mobile app project. We're going through that. We've been going through the scope, schedule, cost, and we've been working with our project team where Samantha has kicked off the project. Billy is our project manager running the project, and we've got business analysts, developers, and testers. But now it's time to look at risk, and here are the 6 risk tools and techniques that we're going to be going through. Let's start with the main one and the most important one, which is our risk assessment matrix. And what we're usually doing here is brainstorming risks with our project team. Remember, a risk is something that could impact us in the future. It hasn't happened yet, so we're planning for the future. And as we plan, we look at the probability that something is going to happen and the impact when it does happen. Now, in this risk matrix, I've put them from very low to very high, so 5 items here, but you could rate them from 1 to 5 as well. Typically, you then take those numbers, so 1 to 5 and 1 to 5, and you multiply them together to give you your overall risk rating. But in this case, I've put them as words just because it's a little bit nicer. And then we put a control, so we try and control that risk and say what we're going to do to mitigate that risk. And once we do that, usually the overall risk is going to be lower. It might reduce the impact, or it might reduce the probability of that risk from happening. And then we've got a better situation if we have that control in place. And a risk matrix typically looks like this. As you can see, before the controls, we've got lots of different risks. This is our matrix with medium and low, or medium and medium. Here are our critical risks over here with high probability and a high impact. And so we've got some critical risks that we really don't want to be left alone. We don't want these outstanding. So we put the controls in place that we've named over here. We might test different pricing strategies. We might ensure set of verification for our Pet Buddy mobile app. And once we have those controls, then it's starting to look a lot better. It brings them back under control. We've now got some sustainable risks and some moderate risks only, and nothing in our critical or severe. I absolutely love this risk assessment template, and it does all of that automatically for you once you input your brainstormed risks. And that's the most important place to start. Now, how do we brainstorm risks with our team? Well, there are a few ways, and the 2 most popular are SWOT Analysis and PESTEL or PESTEL Analysis, depending on how you want to show it. But SWOT is our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And typically, our risks are going to come from our weaknesses in the project and threats from outside the project. For example, there might be major players externally who are already dominating the pet sitter market that we're trying to enter. Or there might be pet owners might cut back on services during a downturn. These are things external that we usually can't control that we might have to address. And our weaknesses, we might have a reliance on the business owner's personal brand, or we might have user trust concerns for pets because they're leaving their beloved pets with other pet sitters, and so we need to address those trust concerns. These are wonderful ways to brainstorm risks with our SWOT analysis. And a similar one is PESTEL or PESTEL, again, depending on how you want to arrange those letters, but that is political risks, environmental risks, social risks, technological risks, economic and legal risks. Now, these could be opportunities as well. Remember, risk doesn't have to be negative. It can be positive. It could be an opportunity if it hasn't happened yet and it's something in the future. But it's a positive risk, then it's an opportunity for us. So just remember that one. But some things we might come up with are AI-driven matchmaking, wearable pet tech. So our pets might have wearable tech that they can use and integrate with our mobile app. Zoning laws might impact us from a legal perspective. So lots of things that we need to be aware of that can now go into our risk assessment matrix. Now, once we've brainstormed all of our risks and we've come up with the qualitative measures like likelihood and impact that we saw before, now it's time to come up with some more quantitative measures of our risks. And that's where we're looking at actual data and actual numbers and simulations. And we're delving into these risks a little bit more deeply. One way to do this is with decision tree analysis, where we have our decision at the left-hand side here. And then we look at the costs for each decision and the probability of things happening as they go along. Now, as we continue along this journey with different probabilities and different costs or benefits, it gives us an outcome at the end. For example, as we expand, do we use aggressive paid marketing or do we use sponsorships and referrals? So these are our two options. One costs $500,000, the other one costs $200,000. Now, as we go along, we've got a 60% chance of strong demand, but for sponsorships, a 75% chance of strong demand. And the outcome here is a $200,000 benefit with a 45% chance. But the outcome for aggressive paid marketing is also a $200,000 outcome, but a 42% chance. So overall, it looks like our sponsorships and referrals might be the best decision path or decision tree for us to go down. And now we've gathered that data on the controls or the mitigations that we could put in place. Another way to analyze risks and opportunities is with a force field analysis. Here is our opportunity or our risk that we're looking at. In the middle, we're developing an AI-driven matchmaking algorithm. So that was one of the things in our PESTEL analysis that we were looking at. And the way force field analysis works is like this. We've got our decision in the middle and the forces for it on the left-hand side and the forces against it on the right-hand side. And then we rank them from 1 to 5. So how strong is that force? High development costs might be a very, very strong force against developing an AI-driven matchmaking algorithm. But algorithm bias and errors might just be a very small force. So down here. Now, once we have ranked these, both on the positive and on the negative side, then we need to add them together. For example, before I moved all of these around, we had 15 in total as forces against this change, but we had 14 in total for the change. So it looks like it's probably not going to be a great way going forward, or it's very close. We can look into that in a bit more detail, but ultimately the forces against it are stronger. That's a wonderful way to gather more data on our risks and opportunities. And lastly, another way that we can analyze these things is with sensitivity analysis or a tornado chart. For this sensitivity analysis, what we're looking at is how the commission per sit, so the commission that we're paying the pet sitters, how that changes the revenue overall. For example, if we have a 5% revenue share with our sitters, then it looks like we've got positive revenue over here of $320,000. 10% is also positive at $290,000. But as soon as we start getting up, so 15% revenue share, then it actually negatively impacts the overall revenue. People stop doing sits with us or they start using other apps. And then 20% is positive, 25% is negative. Now, this could go many different ways, and it's really up to the data that you collect. And this is just an example. But the idea is that this looks like a tornado in the end because we have some negative values and we have some positive values. We rank them from the highest to the lowest, whether it's positive or negative, and now it looks like a tornado. This could be many different things. This could be positive value that we're delivering in our team versus negative risks that we're trying to mitigate in our team. And again, ranking these to prioritize the highest value and the highest risks over the lowest value and the lowest risks. And this is the last great way to gather more data on our risks and overall 6 wonderful tools that you're going to find in risk management on your project.